Am I muted?
Good morning, Doug here from the Hundredfold Journey. Thanks again for joining me on this Sundays with Doug, where we are on a journey together, where we're helping you to rewire your brain, build new habits, and create a new identity, because you do have the power to choose. And the Hundredfold is about a group of people on a journey to find their true identity and life purpose. So thanks for joining me this morning. We are continuing in our series called Rest for Your Soul. And what exactly does that mean? What does it look like? So we will be talking about that in detail this morning, exactly how we rest. But before we go there, I'd like to have those that are online to talk about a 10 truth. Maybe that showed up for them this last week. We always like to do that because I encourage you to memorize, apply, and meditate these truths in your life, because they're true for Jesus, because he was always in the right place at the right time. He had unlimited possibilities and resources, and so do we. So with that said, who would like to share any particular truth that came up this last week?
I will. I've been reading all of the 10 truths, but the one that I think really has been kind of on my mind a lot is that I'm really paying attention to that circumstances don't matter, only my state of being, and just staying present. Maybe things aren't, showing up, but I'm just resting. I'm just staying in my state of being. And I feel I feel like I'm resting, and I'm just, allowing things to come to me and it's perfect time. So, but I have been reading the 10 truths every day,
Yeah.
and but that one seems to be really, I feel like I'm at rest. I feel at peace. Like I don't have a monkey mind. I'm just
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just staying present, and I'm like that's what really matters.
Was there a particular situation this last week where the circumstances may have been pushed you to being negative and you caught it, and then you came back and said, nope, circumstances don't matter?
Right. I think sometimes, I can go back to things that have happened to me in the past, and then I
Yes.
might be emotionally triggered by it. And
Yep.
so then I just tell myself, no, stay focused, stay at rest. Everything is working on your behalf. All my needs are constantly met.
Yep.
So I just been pouring the truth into me because it helps me to stay focused on source, and not on the the ego, or the state of mind where the monkey
Yes.
mind can go off track
Yes.
and lead you down a rabbit hole. So yeah.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. So the, the the next couple of slides are just kind of review of what we've been talking about. And what we're talking about is defining our identity. And because when we understand our identity, then we can find rest for our soul. And we're going to get into that a little bit more this morning. But just as a reminder, we are a triune being. We are a spirit, a soul, and a body. So the spirit is within us, and that's timeless. It was before the foundation of the world. That's what's in us, called spirit. And then the soul is what God breathed the life into us, and we became a life-giving, living soul, excuse me. And then, of course, we have this body with the five physical senses. So spirit, soul, and body. And that's who I am. The other thing is, we talked about this last week, was I am heaven on earth. So as we looked at the temple of the Old Testament, when the Israelites were walking through the desert, Moses was given a description of what the temple, um, God's temple. And what was interesting is, as the temple is laid out, there were three sections to that temple. There was a outer court, a inner court, which is called the tent of meeting, and then the Holy of Holies. So the Holy of Holies, if you lay it out on the body, you can see where the spirit resides, right? It's I am spirit, which is up in the Holy of Holies. So this is the meeting place of God, just like it was in the Old Testament. Um, and then the middle section was the soul, and that was also a tent of meeting, but also called the holy place, and then the outer court. So this is us. We are the dwelling place of God. And then the other thing, just as a reminder, we covered this last week, was we are now a life-giving spirit. So we're not just a soul uh, in a body, we also can be a life-giving spirit. And as the scriptures say, that rivers of living water will flow out of us. So when our love bank is full, when we are full of the love, not only for ourselves, but other people, then we can be that life-giving spirit. But we need to make sure that our love bank is full so that we can be overflowing. So how do we fill that love bank? How do we get to the point where we can be this life-giving spirit? And it starts with understanding our identity. So, so for those that are online, can you tell me the story of Cinderella? I'm sure most of us are familiar with this. Can you describe the story of Cinderella?
But it's been a long time, but I think I can remember that she was one of the sisters, and the other sisters probably didn't like her or didn't treat her very well, and so she was kind of locked in a house as not being recognized. And then someone came along and I don't know if it's a prince, acknowledged her, and I think she realized, who she was. She came from this not knowing who she was to this prince. So there
Yeah,
was some sort of a realization.
right.
I'm terrible about that. I'm not sure how that story goes. It's been a long
So
time.
just a little bit of tweak. So she was a daughter of a king, and he married a woman that had two daughters, and he died. So she became a stepchild for this mother with this other two kids, and the stepmother, treated her horribly. So Cinderella forgot her identity and who she was. She thought that she was a servant, a slave to this stepmother, as well as to the other sisters. And it wasn't until she realized through her fairy godmother, um, not sure exactly how to tie that one in, but she realized that she was not this slave in slave clothes, but actually a princess. So this is how we are to view ourselves, revealing the true me. It was there all the time, but it took some trials and tribulations to reveal who I already was, who I am. So yes, Cinderella went through some trials, right? She wanted to go to the ball and then ended up not being able to, but then this was revealed to her. So sometimes it takes trials to bring out our true self.
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of us. We get into these paradigms or relationships, and we get hurt or wounded, and then we lose sight of who we are, and we
Yes,
focus on our emotional gauges, and and then next thing we get wounded, and we lose track of who we are. So yeah,
exactly.
that's really good.
Exactly. So she was always a princess. She was born a princess, but then she forgot. She forgot because of the trials and the tribulations and the pressures of the stepmother, etc. All right. So now we take another picture. So describe to me what you see in this picture.
Um, I see a beautiful princess, a bride.
A bride. Yeah.
Um, she looks like she knows who she is.
Yes.
Um, She's walking in her divinity.
Yes. How is she clothed? What do you see?
She's adorned beautifully, but I'm sure that that's not what makes her beautiful. It's probably on her face. You can tell that she's very happy. Maybe she's very, um, like she knows who she is.
Yeah, yeah. And what's on her head?
A crown.
Yeah. What's around her neck?
Um, just a necklace. She's
Jewels. Jewels. Yeah,
jewels.
yeah, beautifully adorned. So what do you think she's thinking?
I think I think she feels really good. I think she feels like she's being celebrated, and knows it.
And
You
knows
know,
it. Right.
you know.
So what do you think she's thinking though?
Um, that I'm beautiful, that I'm loved.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. How about feeling? You mentioned earlier, but what do you think she's feeling?
I would think that she feels joyful, that she's very happy, that she just feels really good.
Mhm. Yeah. And what is she doing? So not necessarily in this picture, but what do you think that she does just on any given day? What is she doing?
Um, she's just living in her purpose, maybe. Maybe
Mhm.
she feels confident at who she is. She's here. She knows who
So
she
bring
is.
yeah, so being a bride and whether it's a princess or a queen, what's the role and the function of that person?
Um, she's in a relationship, maybe a relationship of, I don't know how to tie that in.
All right. So yeah, being a queen or a princess, you think of like Princess Diana, right? Where
Yeah.
she because of the overflow, she was able to help other people, those less fortunate, right? So she did the things that she did was out of an outflow of who she was, right? So do you think she's at rest? And if so, why? Do you think she's at rest?
Well, I think she's at rest because, her, um, she looks like she totally feels loved, and maybe she wants to share that love with others,
Mhm.
like she's already fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and some of the other words that I would attribute, she looks confident, right?
Hmm.
She definitely looks loved. Um, she's proud, um, and she wants to show it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, another picture. All right, describe what you see here.
Um, I see that she's in this picture that two people, want to share this relationship.
Yeah.
They're committed, and um, I think the guy on the knee feels honored, and she feels maybe that she feels like she's really supported. She feels secure.
Mhm. Who does the bride represent in this picture?
Um, the bride represents the relationship with God, I think.
So in particular, who does that bride represent
Well,
specifically?
specifically, the us individuals.
So I'm looking for the answer. That's me.
Yeah, that's me.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is you, that is me, that is everyone on this planet. And who's the person kneeling? Who does that person represent?
That would be like, I think that would be, to me, that would be like God,
Yes.
maybe the
Yes.
relationship that, I'm partaking with God,
Yes.
and he wants me, it looks like.
Oh yeah, you got that right. You got that right. I mean, do you see just the love, the passion for each other, his
Mhm.
willingness to come to us on bended knee, saying, I'm here for you. I'm your source, I'm your supply, and I
Yes.
love you unconditionally. And they're both looking at each other eye to eye,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
There's nothing being held back here.
Yeah. Resting.
Thank you. Thank you. Resting. So what do you think she is thinking?
Um, she feels, I mean, she's thinking about how she's loved, how she's happy to be a
Yes.
part of this relationship. Yeah.
She's thinking, you mean I get this guy all to myself
Yeah.
and he's willing to love me until death do us part? And he's willing to come to me on bended knee? I don't deserve this,
Mm-hmm.
yet he does it anyways. So she's thinking, ah, maybe I do deserve this. Maybe I am worthy. And his only response is, absolutely, you're mine. So what do you think she's feeling?
Um, she probably feels really happy. She feels joyful. She feels
Yeah.
honored and loved. Yeah.
Secure?
Secure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think she's doing? Right. So when she, you know, from here, where does she go? What does she do?
Um, she's part of this relationship. She's
Yes.
presenting herself as part of this unique relationship that,
Yeah. So she's doing out of the fullness that she has.
yes.
Yeah. Right. So do you think she's at rest?
Oh, yeah. I would think that she feels secure.
Yes.
God, that he does that to us. He makes us feel secure. He takes care of us.
And it's the rest because of the love
Uh-huh.
that she knows that she has from him unconditionally.
Yes.
I love this picture.
Yeah,
All
it's
right. Next,
beautiful.
next one. Describe what you see here.
Ah, on top of the mountain.
On top of the world. Yes.
Yep.
And okay, and then what else do you see?
Um, just being in the presence of everything and looking at everything and being a part of that.
Mhm. Yep. So think of this person as your higher self, right? That's the spirit that is within everyone. And your spirit is here it's God in you, guiding you, directing you, encouraging you, loving you. So just like this person has a vantage point of looking down on a valley, and you'll see that kind of road off to the side, right? Our
Mhm.
higher self is there to say, hey, Doug, there's a clear path coming up, but then it's going to kind of bend to the right. But don't worry, keep going. So our higher self, the spirit that's within us, will always guide and direct us. And we can trust that it will guide us and direct us because of what we saw in the previous slides. We know that we're loved, we're supported. So think of this as your higher self looking down and giving you guidance and direction because we have the mind of Christ. So the thoughts that pop into your head about, hey, why don't you call this person or do this, and following that breadcrumb trail, we have the mind of Christ. So those thoughts will come into us and guide us and direct us. And where is it coming from? It's coming from source, which is your higher self, which sees the full the full valley, right?
Mhm.
We in our physical body, we're down at the bottom of that valley and we're walking the path, right? But
Mhm.
we don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but God does, our higher self does. So we have to trust in that. We have to rest in that. That makes sense?
Yes.
So, um, you've been raised and seated in heavenly places. So in the Bible, it talks about we are raised and we are seated with him. And this is our position right here. And then in all your ways, all your ways know him, and your paths will be made straight. So when we trust him, when we know him, when we see that we are his bride, um, that we are adorned, we are um, a princess, a queen, right? Um, that our paths will be made straight.
Mhm.
All right. So describe what you see here. This is kind of a throwback from a couple of weeks ago, but what do you see here?
It's a light bulb. It's
Yeah.
connected to the source and it's lit
Yes.
up.
Yes. Love it.
It's not,
So it's
yeah.
a life at rest. We're co-creating spirit, soul, and body, perfect
Hmm.
harmony, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So, a different way to look at it is, we're a bride. Uh, we're completely loved and supported, but sometimes we don't connect to that connector, right? To spirit. We kind of want to do it on our own. And sometimes we forget. So what happens to that light when we're not connected? It it either diminishes or goes out, right? It's always there. It's always available. I'm not saying you're not the light because you are, but when we don't think of ourselves in this way, then sometimes we'll do silly things, thinking that we have to do something in order to be who we already are. And we don't want to do that. We want to stay connected. And the
Hmm.
way we stay connected is when we truly understand our identity and who we are.
Hmm.
All right. So there is a story in the Bible, Mark chapter 4, where um, Jesus is asleep in the hull of a ship, and a storm comes, and the disciples go crazy. And in fact, I want to go ahead and read this. Um, so that day, when evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." And that's an important one. Jesus told his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There was also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still, be at peace." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." So, what allowed Jesus to rest in this situation?
Because he knew, he just knew what he said, like his word was with him, like he knew
What did he know?
to go to the other side. He knew that he believed in his word, when he made a decision. That was,
Yes. So one of the things that Jesus said was that he only did what he saw the Father do, and he only spoke what he heard from the Father. So the fact that he said that let's go over to the other side, that really was the word from source. That was the word from that other picture, right? The higher self, which is looking down at the valley, right?
Mhm.
We're walking in the valley, but source God is telling us uh, directions to go. So the direction was, let us go over to the other side. So Jesus rested in that statement. So circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. So regardless of circumstances, he knew he could rest in that word, right? So
Yeah.
he was able to rest. So now we have to apply that to our lives, our personal lives. So what is it that we're worried about? What is it that we're fearful about? Because, he basically says, guys, why are you so afraid? I told you, and he didn't say this right here in the scripture, but that's what he meant. I told you we were going to go over to the other side. So why were you fearful? Why did you allow circumstances to change your state of being? And the state of being is going from rest to unrest because of the circumstances.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the question for us is, what word are we standing on that allows us to come from a state of rest?
Trust, just
Right,
believing,
right. But believing in what?
believing that he's in his word, what he says is
And
true.
and what does he say?
Let us go to the other side.
Right, but and I'm
Be
sorry, I'm
still.
kind of trying to lead you into an answer, but
To rest, to be still.
right, but it comes from knowing who we are and
Right.
our identity. When
Yeah.
I know that I'm that queen, that princess that's standing in that hallway, that's is adorned with a crown and jewels and white, and in this castle that all of her needs are constantly met. There's not a care in her world because she knows she's truly loved. And when we know that God source is loves us unconditionally and looking at us eyeball to eyeball and saying, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Don't worry about a thing. I got you. And
Mhm.
then when we see our higher self, knowing that it's going to guide us and that path will be made straight when we're fixed on that, when we trust that and know that's the word, just like let us go over to the other side. I love you unconditionally. All your needs are met. When we can rest in that, then regardless of what is around us, the storms, uh, whatever it might be, we can be in a state of rest.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So just to summarize, rest, it's not something you do. Rest comes out of knowing who you already are. You're already that queen. You're already that princess. And for the guys out there that are listening, yes, you're a bride. It's kind of weird, right? Okay, well, I gotta bride's gown on, and I'm in white, but that's the way we should view ourselves, as being, we're not the groom, guys. We are that bride. So we just have to accept that. But again, not something you do. Rest comes from knowing who you already are, regardless of anything good, bad, different, doesn't matter. It's who you are. And then from there, from that fullness, from our love bank being full, then we can, just like the example of Princess Diana, going out and from a state of fullness and a state of rest, being able to help and support other people on their journey. All right, there we have it. Questions, comments?
No, I think that the key word there is knowing,
Yes, no. And the
knowing.
way we know is through experience.
Yeah.
And the example would be the first time you're on an airplane, right? Maybe as a kid or whatever, you're a little nervous. Oh, I don't want to go on the plane. Don't worry, honey, you'll be fine. And then the second time becomes a little bit easier. Third time becomes easier. Fourth time, it's like you know, it's a no-brainer, right? So you're absolutely right. When we get to the place where we know that we know that we know, then it just becomes, of course I'm going to be supported. Of course I'm going to start this new job. Of course I'm going to meet these people. Um, of course, I just know, right? Because of who I am. I am his bride. I am adorned. I am loved completely. All right. So thanks for joining us. As always, I'm encouraging you to memorize, apply, and meditate. Um, Look for these and share these next week, so that next week when we come on, you can share maybe some experiences of these 10 truths. And I would just encourage you to remind yourself each and every day, thank you that I'm your bride. Thank you that I'm loved, I'm supported, um, and that these truths are true for you. All right, that's it for this morning. Thanks always for jumping on, and have a good week, and bye for now.